Hey guys, welcome back to the Tough Love Podcast with Dr. John O'Connor. Today's guest, Alex Brown. I've watched this young man grow up, and sharing his story today, I have to tell you, has really moved me with both of my parents over the last couple of years, through my mom battling cancer and my dad right now going through it with COPD. I really thought Alex would be a special guest today to share some of his story. Alex, welcome.
I'm so happy to be here. It's really awesome.
Alex, I want to jump right into it. I feel like Uncle John here in this situation, but I'm going to brag. He just finished up school, collegiate athlete, standout high school athlete. This kid has been just an all-American young man from day one since I met him. But Alex, I think probably one of the most special things about you is the story about you and your mom. And bring the audience into it with regards to mom's final days and then passing, and then the special game for you that was really for her. Go ahead, buddy.
Yeah, of course. So it was 11/11 of 2021, and my mom was a very special person to me. She was my best friend. She taught me what toughness is, and I'm so happy and so grateful that I got those moments with her. So when she passed, it was a really tough thing for me. But I knew, through all those moments of heartbreak and crying on the day that she died, I knew there was only one thing that she would want from me. And that's to continue to do what I love and do it in her name.
Take us back to that day, right? I remember because, as you'll remember, I was working on her multiple days a week. And when I was paralyzed, having neuropathy, mom was battling crazy neuropathy. And so I was working on her. And she was such a special person. She was so selfless and tough.
Yeah.
And I would kick your dad out of it. Go away. I'm just going to hang with your mom for like an hour and a half. And it was during COVID, and I have to say it was like an amazing time with her. I really enjoyed the moments.
That's awesome.
But bring us back to the day. What was going through your mind emotionally on the day you stepped on the field?
That's a great question to start with. So I guess on that day, you ever feel a presence? Like when someone passes, I've never felt this before, but it was almost like it was God on the field, it was my mom on that field, and it was this presence of, that ghostly love that I felt safe, but I felt powerful at the same time. And, stepping onto that field, all my teammates were crying with me, but I was just so locked in and focused. It was almost like I wasn't the one playing at the time. It was like she was playing through me. And I remember we got into the field. I think we got the ball first. And I remember that it was a pass play. And literally this was the first play of the game. My buddy Emmanuel, I knew he was going to run an over route. So I rolled out to my right. No one was really coming open over on that right side. So I looked back over my shoulder and I threw it sidearm back to him. And the first play was a touchdown. And then after that, I knew it was going to be lights out.
It was special. Beyond the performance, when it settled in, how were your teammates with you on the field?
Man, they were ecstatic. It was super emotional. I remember everyone, you could look back on the videos, and every single time, everyone would just point up, be like, that's for Mama Brown, that's for Mama Brown. She played a really special role in our entire season, and, everyone that looks back and talks about that season, they talk about her, and it's really special.
That's awesome. Well, share with the audience, we're going to bring them back to it. How did the nation react?
Oh man, it was pretty cool to see everyone's reactions to the situation. It started out with just a simple post, actually, on Twitter. I said, "This one was for you, Mama," and 8 touchdowns. And that was our number together, was 8. That was our special number. And I posted it. I didn't really think much of it. And I look the next day, and it's 2 million views, 4 million views, 10 million views. It just went crazy. It went viral. And, people were texting me. They're like, yo, are you seeing this? Are you seeing it? I was like, yeah, it's pretty cool. ESPN goes, can I post this? Sports Illustrated reaches out, can I post this? I'm getting station calls from Fox News, CNN, all the biggest stations in the world. And, I was getting interviewed left and right. And I go, wow, she did this for me. She did this for me. This love is coming down from above. And yeah, it was super special.
So looking back at it, wasn't really pressure. It was peace, right?
It was peace. I like that. It was peace. I remember this one moment specifically where it was actually right before the state championship. And my dad was super emotional. And he goes, listen, you have done all that you need to done. And in my head, I go, well, I'm not finished yet. But one of the things I remember is him saying, there's no pressure. And I'm like, Dad, I don't feel any pressure. I got this. And that reminded me, that quote you just said, that reminded me a lot of that.
You had peace.
That was at peace.
It's funny and your dad's a great man. We're good friends. And I've always said, he has been the rock in that house. And the love he has for you two boys is just unmatched. He's such an impressive dad. And I always say it's always, I try to keep my circle tight, and having guys like him, it makes it easy.
Yeah.
So in this case, clearly that grief sharpened you,
yes.
where you got to be the one that he was so concerned, as he always is with the two of you. And the reality is, in that moment, you're like, Dad, I got this, and it matured you, and, when you guys were dealing with this, because, your mom being sick didn't happen overnight, and so you guys watched it for years. And I have to say, if there were two words that I think about your mom, it'd be dignity and grace, right?
I like that, yeah.
And I really thought the way she carried herself and the toughness, I literally got tears in my eyes, because your dad rattled off what was broken on her, and she didn't say boo. Remember, you go, and I'm like, hey, listen, just for the record, she's way tougher than us. So let's talk about the New York Giants quarterback reaching out and what that felt like at that time. Because listen, you're still a young kid, right? You're still a high school kid.
Yeah.
Regardless how much we think we're a stud, it's a whole different thing when somebody's reaching out. So what was that like?
That was really cool. So I remember we were at basketball practice now, and my friends and my dad had decided to put a little prank on me. And they set it up to where we just got done with practice, and they say, hey, you're getting a FaceTime call, Alex. You're getting a FaceTime call. I'm like, what? And they're like, it's Bucknell admissions for college. So I'm checking my phone. I'm like, okay. I open it, and this is literally what I say, because, I'm in high school. I'm like, Danny Dimes? And it's Daniel Jones. At the time, he was on the New York Giants, and it was just so cool. It was like one of my favorite players is calling me. He ended up telling me that I was going to get 2 tickets to the Super Bowl, and I was like, wow, this is just putting it all together at this point.
It's amazing that you went on, and let's talk about, so Ivy League player, where'd we go?
Bucknell University.
Bucknell University. And great career, right? Let's talk about the last game.
This was cool. So I went through a lot of hardships in college. It's a lot different than high school. And, sometimes you can get a bad coach. Sometimes you can, get injured. But a lot of factors come into play when you're playing with such high level talent. And, so I got moved around to a couple different positions, kind of like a Tim Tebow thing. I would be like a running quarterback a lot of the times. They even moved me to like some receiver at some points. But eventually, my last game, it was such a cool way to finish, because I got back to doing what I love, throwing that rock and go getting touchdowns. And I was like, this is the perfect ending to the story. Exactly. Best way to go out.
Was there a moment for Mom up there?
I think so. I think she wanted me to feel that love of the game one last time. And, she helped me guide that moment.
Love it. The neat thing is you're so multifaceted. I didn't know what to start with today, but I think we put the backdrop in that, we lost Mom in high school. You had, something that will live in sports history, which is amazing. College career was great. And then we throw in modeling and also music. And so tell us about it. And first off, the song, I would say, I remember your dad was so proud of you. He played the song, and I'm like, I never thought I was this crying guy, but you keep hitting me with these things, and I keep getting tears in my eyes. So tell me about the song for your mom.
Well, maybe I need to make a happy song next time so we can get you smiling instead. It's a very important song to me, because it came at a moment where it was actually the first time I ever prayed. I don't know if you're a religious man at all, but it was the first time I ever prayed. And it was a time where I always believed that there was some, force up there. But when it really came to be is when I got connected with my mom when she was up there, right? So it was a time where I was really down in myself in college, and I was just really missing my mom. And I'm sure a lot of people, all your viewers, have had a moment where they're missing someone in their life. And I wrote this song. It's called Somewhere Else, and it is a little sad, but I think it's important to appreciate.
Emotion, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's important to appreciate that side and that emotion. I agree.
One of the things in coaching I say to my athletes is that when you can harness emotion, whether you're playing for your grandparents, for me, it was I lost my grandpa in high school.
Yeah.
And, whatever that is, and we all go through and see adversity. How we react to that defines us.
Yep.
Right?
I love that.
And it's those defining moments that we look back on. And they're the bricks that build the wall of a castle that we call our lives.
Yeah.
Right? And, so I can't say enough about you as a young man that you just keep, you're doing a fine job of building a friend. Talk to me about now we're graduated Bucknell.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And what are we doing? What's the play?
So right now,
to be honest, we can't put everything out there because he could be a super celebrity soon, so some of this can't go out. So just let you know now. So tell me what you can.
So I decided to graduate early. I got a lot of dreams and goals I want to achieve. And one of those things being, I want to move people with music. Music's been a big part of my life. I used to grow up writing poetry and songs with my mom. And that's something that a lot of people didn't know about me because, football took such a big part of my life. So now I kind of want to go back and explore that side of myself. I've been doing it for about 2 years now. I have about 10 songs out, a new EP on the way. So my plan is to just get as much music as I possibly can done, go out, play shows in venues, and just kind of explore that side of myself. I think it's important for people to explore different parts of themselves to really find themselves.
So it's funny, I utilize an AI program to create these when I have the story and dialogue, so it organizes me. So this part, it called it belay for you instead of tricks. And literally, I see it, I'm thinking Vin Diesel. And it said athlete, artist, academic.
That's awesome. That's the perfect way. Yeah, I love that.
And I chuckled. I was like, Alex Brown, AK, And, but again, how does music help you process your life as, a young man now starting to step into your own way?
I think it helps me process it in a multitude of ways. I think one of the biggest ways is that sometimes I actually think I'm better at communicating not only emotions, but sometimes even words with my music. It was something that has connected me to a lot of people. And I think it's going to help. It has helped me kind of understand and finally grieve, is another way to put it, and finally grieve over what has happened throughout my life.
It's not easy, right? You lost your mom early. You and your brother both are remarkably accomplished, right? I brag about you guys all the time, and I feel like the adopted uncle. And then I'm like, I've had a bunch of smart kids that have graduated in this setting, but it's like, but to lose your mom, the adversity in college to come through. Yeah. I loved hearing that story. I literally was so pissed that I didn't go to that game. I was the one game I was like, man, I'm just going to go. And your dad's like, he's QBN. I'm like, what do you mean he's QBN? He's not receiver? No, he's playing quarterback. Somebody got injured, So it's always funny because it's like preparation, right? Opportunity. Yeah. You've always stepped in and you've always shined when you've been put into the spotlight. And why not? Why not have Alex Brown go out the same way he came in, right? So, now here you are. How do you stay locked in daily, brother? Right? It's like, again, you get to my age, you got to stay locked in daily, but how do you keep yourself locked in? You got a lot of plans, a lot of visions.
Okay. So most importantly, this is something I had to learn to do, was plan your day before you start your day. That's my biggest thing. I think that my biggest test came from that in college, trying to make music, trying to be a Division I athlete while on top of being Ivy Leaguer. Yeah, academic side of it. Come
AAA.
on. AAA, baby. Come on. And if you're going to become a AAA, then, you better learn how to plan and manage the time because it's just super important. That would be the biggest thing. Remembering your why. I think that's a big thing. Like I think you've touched upon it a lot throughout this is remembering your why. That'll fuel the fire.
100%.
Right.
I think we all get lost, right? We have those little micro moments.
Yes, yeah.
And, as a national business coach, I'm in 22 states now and I coach practices and, they're not performing, they're underperforming and I'm not on the hardwoods anymore and I needed that. I need that fuel the same way you loved being on the turf, on the fields, throwing the rock, as you said. The reality is that why for me is watching people win.
Yes.
And when they're getting results and they're seeing patients get better, I've always done that. Your dad's always like, call Doc, call John, right?
Yeah, I remember that one time where my ankle was all busted up. You literally got me back in like a couple days, a week, whatever.
You had like days. Your dad's like, we have 3 days. I always felt like with you it was Mission Impossible.
Yeah, exactly.
You have 3 days to get the mission. He's got a state game against the number 1 team. I'm like, great.
Boom.
We got this. I think, but all seriousness, the reality is like, hearing you say that, it's important. And you got to remember that because, again, the distractions are going to come, right? You're a good-looking kid. You have a charming personality. Staying locked in and remembering your why is going to keep you on that yellow brick road. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
How are you building your brand right now? What are you doing different that you've kind of taken this pivot? And I like it, right? You're carving out and say, hey, I'm going to do this while I'm young. I want to create my legacy right here. Yeah. How are you building that? What's that look like?
So it took a while to understand because there's such a new way to invent yourself. Like you mentioned AI, you got Instagram, TikTok. It's kind of a different realm where obviously the in-person I still think is the most important because that's where you show your true self. But, you want to replicate that online, right? So, you have this whole new realm of, I think an important thing is just posting once a day, but being true to who you are while you post. Yeah. Letting your outlet go to all the different, social platforms, right? So Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. I think that's super important to cover all the spaces because you never know which one's going to hit. If it, that one time I went viral, it was on Twitter. If I didn't post on Twitter, I only really use Instagram.
Right?
Yeah, you'd never know.
And you only do that because that was where recruiting happened.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, literally, yeah.
So I get it. Who holds you accountable outside of your internal motor that obviously runs at a real high level? Who would you say now that's here with you every day or in spirit? What would you say like your top 3 things that hold you accountable, keep you locked into this?
Honestly, first I would say God. I think I mentioned it briefly, but I became pretty religious recently, and I love being around a community that like will always push you to become better. And I think that's something beautiful in religion and with God, is that it'll constantly push you to become a better person, even when you feel like you're failing. I would say second is my dad. He's a kind of a hard ass, but we
love you, Ray.
We do. He's a tough motherfucker, but he grew up in a super poor situation. He had to work his way up. So I respect that. And it honestly pushes me to be a better person. So I would say him. And lastly, my mom. My mom in spirit, I always feel like she's watching over me, even if it's, sometimes I don't want her to. But yeah.
Behave.
Yeah, exactly. But no, her in spirit as well.
I love that. I love all 3 points. So, it's a big jump, right? I mean, I was watching the process. I'm involved with your family all the time. What scares you right now with this path you decided to go on?
I would say the unknown. The unknown is something that, we can't necessarily control. And I think for leaders like us, we love to know what we can control, right? So for me, the unknown is something that I fear. Actually, I would say, I'm going to change that a little bit though. I would say my biggest fear is time. Time is something that we can't get back. And it's something that I've realized, and you guys say it as we get older and stuff, but I get it. It's true.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that I learned that at an earlier age, because I don't care if I fail. I just want to go take that swing, and if I miss, I want to swing as big as possible, because we can't take that time back. So I would say time is my biggest fear.
Eckhart Tolle was somebody I got deep into during COVID, and he said, "We only truly have today."
Yeah, exactly. That's the quote, right? Yeah.
So, you know what? I mean, obviously, this is impressive for a young man like you to come on this podcast. Is this your first podcast?
It is. This is my first podcast.
So, guys, listen, if this goes viral, if one of these parts go, it started here. What would your mom say about the man you're becoming?
I mean, I hope she'd be proud. No, I think it is amazing to think about. She passed away 4 or 5 years ago now. And it is quite incredible. I've been looking back, the college career, the football career, the music now, like the places I've gone with that. Like, it is incredible how much death can actually be beautiful and motivating for you in the sense of life. And, some people need hardships to get, further in life. And I think that that's a huge test, like you said, to becoming who you are. And, if I didn't have that moment, I don't know where I would be today. So I'm grateful for it. I hope that she's proud. I know that she's proud, actually. I know that she's proud. And, it's funny. Right before she passed, I sang her 2 of her favorite songs. And this is before I was making music. This is like 2 years before I was even doing music. But I whispered to her, and I don't know why I did this, but like right before she passed, I said, how you always wanted me to do music. Well, one day I will make songs that will be heard around the world, and I hope you'll hear them up in heaven. That's what I told her. And I don't know why I said that. I have no idea. Before I was making music, but that's a true story.
I love that. And, again, I said this when we were off screen or off camera, adversity doesn't make you, it reveals you.
Yeah.
Right? So many people, friends, your competition, they break under pressure.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
But how are diamonds made? Under pressure.
Under pressure.
Right? And the reality is I think everything you're doing, and the steps you've taken along the way for athletes, the recruiting process, NIL, everything you've seen is so unique.
It is nuts. That's a great point. Yeah,
and I have to say, you've done it. You've done it well. You've done it your way. You have to sing a Sinatra song. You're doing it your way, kid.
I did it my way. Yeah.
Without a doubt. Well, listen, what would you tell young athletes coming up now that feel like everything's working against them or there's adversity going on? What would you do if you had that opportunity to be in front of a camp and you're speaking, holding the ball, and you're telling them, hey, guys, and you're telling them your story? What would that look like?
I would tell them that the path isn't straight. That's probably the first thing I would say. I bounced around to 3 different high schools. I was jumping around in schools, even in New York. I moved to New Jersey. My family bet on me to make this happen in sports, in football, and the path is not straight. The path is, curvy, windy. It's got rocks. It's all the challenges in front of you that are going to make you great. And just know that if you keep doing the right thing, and if you keep putting in that work, great things will happen.
Love it.
Yeah.
Guys, I think if I could give that to you in an overview as an adult that's worked with so many amazing kids and athletes, is pain is fuel, discipline is love. It's remembering those that we lost, love those that have sacrificed to give us so much, whether that's energy, whether that's belief in ourselves, whether that's the creativity to create.
100%.
And, character is built when nobody claps, but it's the people in our minds that we look back with that we used to love making them smile when they were watching us do stuff.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And, I just want to acknowledge Alex for coming up today. It's not easy, guys. I don't think you guys realize what it is to lose a parent. I'm in my 50s. I'm ready to tear up thinking about to lose, potentially could lose my parents. And I'm like, oh, this is horrible. This young man has done it with grace, with composure. And, again, if this is the measuring stick, he set it high. So, my friend, I wish you all the luck in the world. I better be at a world tour there.
Let's go.
We're going to have to get in the gym and get after it soon. Guys, Alex Brown. I'm definitely going to have a huge link to follow him, all his music. We're going to have the tribute song with this podcast for his mom on there. Michelle, thank you for making such an amazing young man. Guys, thank you for joining us today. God bless. We'll see you again soon.